Welcome back. First off, thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. It's genuinely a dream come true, and there'll be a big thank you at the end for those of you who want to hear it. But let's talk Batman, so let's get into the video. Now, we can all agree the mainline Arkham quadrilogy, those being Asylum, City, Origins and Night, are four of the best superhero games ever. And I know for a fact everyone who's played them has at least two in their top 5 of all time. But what made them so good? Well, the general consensus is the Asylum's atmosphere, City's story, Origins boss fights and Night gameplay are the outstanding features from each game. Cut and dry. Although, people may dispute this, it's pretty well regarded as the correct best thing for each mainline entry. But what are the best things in each game aside from these things? What's the second best or joint best thing in each game? Is it Origins' performance, Night's boss fights, Asylum's gameplay, or even City's, I don't really have a joke for this, to be fair. City's got no resounding holes to pick at, but today we'll be looking at each of the main 4 Arkham games' other best features. So let's get into it. Starting with the granddad of the franchise, the one that started it all, Arkham Asylum. I think Arkham Asylum has the most limited list of other best features. It was the first game in the series, and so there are shouts for it being the gameplay, it being the first of its kind in the series. It could be the art design, and this was almost my pick. The grand and unnerving architecture of this game is something I regularly go back to visit, but I ultimately settled on the character designs as the second best thing about Asylum. When we look at characters in isolation, Batman has one of the best and most iconic designs of his whole existence in this game. The grey suit with the huge bat symbol spanning the width of his chest, the long ears, the fitted tone design of the suit, it all comes together to create arguably the best on-screen Batman suit. Joker's design is straight from the animated series, and brings this iconic design straight to the gritty halls of the Asylum in such a great way. It doesn't stand out, and as stupid as this sounds for the Joker, I think that's what makes it for me. It doesn't scream, I am the Joker from Batman the Animated Series. It's the subtlety in the absurdity that does it for me. And the same goes for a few other designs. Gordon has a great design, simple but instantly recognisable. You see him and there's no, oh, who's that? You know. He has the glasses, the stash, the suspenders, and the look down to perfection. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel here with any of the designs. Even when we look at Bane, a character which I know's garnered a fairly divided fanbase when it comes to his design, but in my humble opinion, this is one of the best and most memorable designs of Bane. Again, it doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it adds enough Arkham sauce for the man who broke the bat to remain recognisable, iconic, and still as terrifying. Again, it's probably the best on-screen Bane we've got. If anyone knows any other really cool on-screen Bane designs, comment, because I love Bane and I love learning new stuff about these characters I might have missed in my lifetime obsession with Batman's universe. Speaking of the big baddies in the game, and yes, long-time viewers will know where this is going, Killer Croc. Croc in this game is nigh on perfect. I don't think there's a design I love more than Croc in this game. It's by far my favourite design of his, and again, it doesn't stretch the lore, the iconography, or the overall feel of the character. He looks great, big enough to tower over Batman and terrifying enough to make any encounter with the former circus freak instantly memorable. Scarecrow is peak, Harley's memorable, Ivy looks great, and even the Scarface puppet looks great. Asylum's character designs are all beautifully made, and you can tell Rocksteady put plenty of thought and design into them. None of them feel out of place, too goofy, or too serious. They all strike that perfect spot that have made Asylum's designs the blueprint for future adaptations. And there's a reason why these characters have stayed looking timeless 15 years after the game's release. Batman Arkham City is a tough one for this video, because it doesn't have one standout feature that could be mentioned without mentioning about 9 other features. So to avoid any confusion or long-winded explanation, I'm just going to pick the combat as its other best feature. I know some people don't like the story, and I can see why, but the general consensus is that it's the best in the franchise. But the combat, well, I genuinely think this might be the most satisfying combat in the series. Knight's might be more fluid, but to me, City has the most punchy and timeless feeling combat, and I think that's why it still holds up so well. We get all the staples of Asylum's first go around, and then tens of added features. Blade dodge takedown, shield takedown, smoothly integrated free flow gadgets, more different uses for free flow combat takedowns, and so many more features. I also feel like it strikes that perfect margin between the often clunky feeling movement during the fights of Asylum and the overly ping-pong feeling mid-fight movement of Night. Each game's combat has its own perks, but City for me has the most satisfying and believable. My favourite feature, and what tipped this choice over the likes of the side content or the world building, is the free flow focus. It makes every fight even more fun and varied, and if you disagree then you just probably aren't using it properly. It's something I know some people aren't even aware exists, but it basically trades a special combo takedown for an upgraded use of a gadget mid-fight. Whether it be a conductive wreck gunshot that acts like the Wonderwaff from COD Zombies, the upgraded explosive gel which can send countless enemies flying, or even the freeze blast which can freeze multiple enemies in place at once. There are other gadgets, but these are the ones I can think of that I use when playing. The wreck gun specifically is a fan favourite for me. It's rare I'll end a large combat encounter without popping one of these, and overall it adds so much depth and adds so many fun and unique ways to use Batman's ever-expanding utility belt gadgets. It's great, and I think if Asylum's initial introduction of free flow was Batman Begins, the fantastic groundwork for a beloved franchise, then City's combat is The Dark Knight, the show-stopping display of all that the system could be. It's truly my favourite part of the game, and a part that I think sometimes gets lost in discussions regarding the game, even though it's really complex and very deep. And I think that because it's in such a great game, it genuinely just gets lost in the discussion sometimes. But anyway, what about Batman Arkham Origins? Well, Batman Arkham Origins, I do have a huge retrospective coming out about this, so I'm going to keep this brief so I don't repeat myself come the day of release. But Origins is usually hailed for its great boss fights. Deathstroke, Bane, Firefly, Mr. Cusioner, Copperhead, Bane again. What? Anyway, Origins smashed it with its mix of huge set-piece boss fights that made you feel like you were playing a huge budget Batman movie, and its gritty one-on-one slugfest where the best combatant would walk out the victor. It didn't pad things that didn't need to be padded, but I think Origins' second best feature, maybe slightly controversially, is its cutscenes. The cutscenes in this game are all pre-rendered, which is a downside, but they're all so raw. Batman looks great, for the most part the lighting is great, its best character moments happen in these cutscenes, and the overall feel of them is something I think Warner Bros. Montreal smashed out of the park. I'm not sure how to explain it without using really simple terms, but they just look so badass. Batman is always on point with his lines, the music is always great with tracks like Deathstroke and Carol of the Bells accompanying some of the most amazing and hair-raising moments in the series. Whether it be Batman and Deathstroke going toe-to-toe for the first time in their careers, or even Batman meeting Joker for the first time, they're just so well done. One that always sticks out to me specifically is the scene where Batman finds out Bane knows who he is. He doesn't say anything, but the lighting, the cliche badass walk away from the explosion, the anger, the piecing together of Bane working out who he is, it's a short one, but one I always love. Obviously the Alfred confrontation scene is great on so many levels, perhaps not visually in comparison to some of the other parts of this story, but in terms of story beats, this is this game's biggest one. And another personal favourite is the final cutscene with Gordon's voiceover. It still gives me goosebumps when I play. He comes to the realisation that maybe, just maybe, Batman is a force for good, as the riots at Blackgate are cleaned up. Joker announces that this was going to be fun regarding Batman and his relationship, and the final swoop over the camera from Batman is pure cinema. And for that reason, this feature gets the nod here. This isn't really a feature as a part of the game, but it is a part of the game, and I could talk about this forever, so much for keeping it brief, but we move on to our finale. Batman Arkham Knight, technically and visually, is where the series peaked. Visually it still holds up, and I can't see it dropping off anytime soon, which is insane because this game's nearly 10 years old. Which is absolutely terrifying, and also a blessing that so far this game hasn't aged. Obviously, gameplay wise, it's the peak of the series. Even the most staunch Knight hater can't disagree with that, because it's just concrete fact. But in terms of Knight's other best feature, I'm going to go with its horror. This might be a bit of a stretch for some, but for me it's something that always keeps me loving this game. At points, it's genuinely horrifying. Let's begin with the pig in the room, a perfect crime. It's outright one of the creepiest, most unnerving missions in the franchise. Pig is one of the most underrated and underhyped Batman villains generally. And although his general scalability isn't great, as in, he's not going to take over the world at any point, his niche of brutally ruining the human condition beyond repair and singing opera, well, there's probably no one better at it than him. Outside of Pig though, Arkham Knight has some creepy features both in-game and things that are implied. Victor Zsasz being on the loose and posing as victims, Fear Toxin in general, Man-Bat is horrifying in this game, and the fact that there might be 2 of them when the night's over is genuinely even worse. Croc's level in Iron Heights is one of the most atmospheric places in the series in general. The city stories give us lore and hints at some truly terrifying things. Grundy being alive and escaping, and the worst of all, for me at least, the story of how Joker came to acquire the amusement park. If you want some truly awful listening or reading, go and research that because it's genuinely awful. But for me, I think one of the most horrifying parts of this game is the consequences of Batman's failure. If Batman were to give in to the Joker in his head, it's game over for everyone. Batman's body, intelligence, resources and skill mixed with Joker's unrepentant will to destroy, yeah, it's lights out, no one's surviving that. It's a horrible thought of what could have happened had Bruce have given in the finale, but thankfully this never happened, and I think this ever-looming threat we see glimpses of in the endgame is easily the most terrifying thing in the Arkham universe. So, we recently hit 1,000 subscribers, which is genuinely insane that so many people like my Batman videos in particular. There's so many great content creators in the same niche, and so the fact you guys subscribed, liked, commented, and just watched these videos is really surreal. I'd set 500 subscribers at the goal for the end of the year, but this has surpassed every hope I had, so thank you, and as long as people choose to show up, there'll be videos. Shout out to Small Broski for being a channel member, and if you want a membership for yourself and want to put me as a real expense on your bank card and get exclusive access to behind the scenes content, shout outs, cool Batman themed emojis and badges, and early access to new videos, then there's a link in description and a little button somewhere on the channel page, hopefully. But anyway, thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. I'll see you next time, I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.
Your parents are dead, and I can't stop laughing. What else can I do? Now I'm part of you. I am the clown, Prince of Clowns.